Get comfortable. Close your eyes if you'd like. This is a story about an island, about survival, and about the strange mercy of being found by something you never knew was looking for you. It begins the way most impossible things begin, in darkness and in silence. We start at the bottom of the ocean, not near the bottom, not close, the very bottom, where the water is so dark it has its own kind of weight, where the pressure is a living thing, where light has never once been a visitor. It is completely, utterly silent. And then, just barely, just at the edge of hearing, a sound begins, low and slow and felt more than heard, like a frequency humming through the water itself, through the sea floor, through everything. It builds gradually, not louder exactly, but deeper, more present. The kind of sound that doesn't arrive in your ears so much as settle into your chest. Something is down here. The camera, if we can call it that, this invisible eye drifting through the dark, begins to rise. Slowly at first, then, with growing purpose, moving upward toward the surface far above. And as the light begins to filter down from that distant surface, soft and gold and diffused, like sunlight through cathedral glass, shapes begin to emerge from the dark water all around. A seat cushion, tumbling lazily in the current, a single shoe, a child's backpack, its zipper open, notebook spiraling slowly outward, like the pages of a book turned by invisible hands, an oxygen mask, its clear plastic tube trailing behind it like the tentacle of some deep sea creature. More things now. A meal tray, a laptop computer, its screen giving one last faint pulse of blue light before going forever dark. A carry-on suitcase, split open, clothing blooming outward in every direction like a strange underwater flower. And then a hand. Just a hand, floating palm up in the water, completely still. We cannot see who it belongs to. We can only look at it. This human thing in all this inhuman dark. The frequency builds, the hand twitches, and the camera surges upward, breaking the surface. Sound arrives like a physical blow. Screaming. Fire. The deep animal roar of burning jet fuel and the sharp hiss of the Pacific Ocean receiving wreckage that was, only minutes ago, a commercial aircraft at cruising altitude. We are in the water now, at the surface, looking out at devastation on a scale that the human mind resists processing. Two massive sections of the fuselage of Oceanic Air 924 are burning on the water's surface, perhaps 200 yards apart. Debris stretches in every direction. People are in the water, some moving, some helping others, some very still. A woman breaks the surface near us, gasping. Her name is Valentina Cruz. Everyone who knows her calls her Val. She is 38 years old, a trauma surgeon from Los Angeles, and she has a particular kind of mind. The kind that even now, even soaked and stunned and surrounded by catastrophe, is already assessing, already counting, already looking for the next thing that needs doing. She treads water and spins slowly, taking in the full scope of what surrounds her. Her lips move. She is counting the people she can see. Someone nearby is screaming. She turns towards it without hesitation. A man is struggling to stay afloat, large, dignified even in this moment, clearly in significant pain, his right arm hanging at a wrong angle. He is going under. Val is already moving toward him. "Hey," she calls out. "Hey, look at me right now." His eyes find hers. "I've got you," she tells him. Stop fighting the water, just float. Let me do the rest. She gets behind him, one arm across his chest, and begins pulling him toward shore. He is twice her size. She does not hesitate for even a moment. He tries to speak, something about not being able to feel his arm, and she tells him not to talk. Just breathe. She will handle the rest. And she scans ahead through the smoke and the fire, and she sees it. A coastline, dense green jungle tumbling all the way down to a white sand beach. A mountain beyond it, its peak wrapped in low cloud. An island where, according to every flight path and every chart, there should be no island at all. Something crosses Val's face when she sees it. Not relief. Something more complicated than relief. Something that looks almost impossibly like recognition. She shakes it off, kicks harder. Come on, she says to herself, to the man she is pulling, to anyone who might be listening. Come on. The camera pulls back slowly, widening until we can see the full wreckage field spread across the dark water, and beyond it, patient and green and absolutely still, the island. The frequency hums once more, like a heartbeat, like a greeting. The aftermath of a crash is not what the movies prepare you for. It is not dramatic. It is not heroic. It is slow and dazed and full of a particular kind of quiet that settles over people when they have absorbed more shock than the human nervous system knows what to do with. The beach is long and white and beautiful, which seems somehow indecent. 3 sections of the aircraft's fuselage have come to rest on and near the shore. One on its side in the sand, still smoking. Another partially intact in the shallows. Rows of seats still visible through gaps in the hull. A third further up the beach, crumpled but largely whole. 47 people have survived. Val knows this because she has already counted. She has gotten the man. His name is Samson Adji, though everyone calls him Sam, a forensic accountant from Washington, D.C., and his right arm is dislocated, safely onto dry sand. And now she is doing what she cannot stop herself from doing. She moves through the survivors in a widening circle, crouching, assessing, making decisions. When she reaches a woman who isn't breathing, she begins compressions immediately, counting under her breath with a steadiness that has nothing to do with calm and everything to do with years of training. The woman doesn't respond. Val sits back on her heels for exactly 1 beat. Then she stands and moves to the next person. Down the beach, a man named Marcus Webb is hauling survivors from the shallows one by one. He is 41 years old, from Atlanta, built large enough to make this look easy. He does it without being asked and without announcing it. He simply sees what needs doing and does it. When the last person is on dry sand and coughing up seawater, Marcus straightens up and surveys the beach with the calm, measuring eyes of someone who has learned, in other contexts, to think clearly in the middle of disasters. His gaze finds Val, working her way down the shoreline. He moves in the opposite direction, covering the other half of the beach. Further up the shore near the tree line, a young woman named Adais Mensah sits in the sand with her knees pulled to her chest. She is 29 years old, Ghanaian British from Peckham in South London. She is not hurt, not physically. She stares at the burning wreckage on the water, and her lips move. She is not praying. She is listing names, the names of people she saw on the plane, trying to match faces to the survivors she can see moving on the beach. And then a sound makes her stop. From the tree line behind her, not loud, not dramatic, just a pressure in the air, a held breath, she turns. The jungle is completely still. Not a leaf moving, not a single bird calling, just green, layered, dense, impossibly deep green, staring back at her. She stares at it. It stares back. A hand lands on her shoulder and she nearly comes out of her skin. "Whoa, hey," a voice says. "I'm sorry, you okay?" It is Marcus, crouching in front of her. She tells him she is fine. He asks if she is sure. She says she heard something. He looks at the jungle and says it was probably the wind. She tells him there is no wind. He looks again. She is right. Not a single thing is moving. He offers her his hand and tells her there are still people in the water who need help. She takes his hand, stands, takes one more long look at the tree line. Nothing. She follows him. Near the intact section of the fuselage, Sam has found a retired paramedic, 60 years old, shaking badly, but functional. And between them, they have fashioned a makeshift sling for Sam's dislocated arm from a passenger's scarf. Sam is directing his own treatment with the kind of clipped precision that belongs to someone who is in significant pain and is managing it by being useful. But in the middle of giving instructions, he stops. He looks around. The jungle, the mountain, the angle of the light. The light is wrong. Not dramatically, subtly. It has a quality he cannot quite name, a particular golden weight to it that doesn't match what the time of day should be. The flight departed at 11 in the evening. They cannot have been in the water long enough for the sun to be where the sun appears to be. He has spent 30 years finding things that don't add up. This doesn't add up. "Where are we?" Sam says very quietly. No one hears him. He doesn't notice. He stares at the sky and begins, quietly and automatically, to take inventory of every detail that doesn't fit. It is what he does. It is all he knows how to do. He has a feeling he is going to be very busy. At the far end of the beach, away from everyone else, a teenage boy sits alone at the water's edge. His name is Haruki Sato. He is 17 years old, from Osaka, Japan. He is soaked like everyone on this beach, and he is sitting with his feet in the gentle wash of the surf and his hands in his lap, and he is looking at nothing in particular. He is not crying. He tried to. It didn't come. On the sand beside him, kept carefully above the waterline, is a single object he has managed to recover from the wreckage. A small lacquered box, dark wood with a red inlay, traditional Japanese in design, the kind of thing that might hold incense. Or photographs. He picks it up, turns it over in his hands, sets it down, picks it up again. Val finds him when she reaches the far end of the beach. She crouches down in front of him. "Hey," she says gently. "Are you hurt?" He looks at her and shakes his head. She asks his name. "Haruki," he says. "Valentina," she says. "Val, were you travelling with someone?" Something crosses his face. A flicker of something that hasn't fully landed yet. The way very large things sometimes cannot land all at once. "My grandmother," he says. Val doesn't speak right away. Her face does enough. "I already know," Haruki says quietly. "I saw her. After she was in the water and I got to her, but she was already..." He stops. His jaw tightens. He looks at the ocean. Val tells him she is sorry. He's quiet for a long moment. Then, "Her name was Michiko, in case someone needs to know that. Her name was Michiko Sato." "I'll remember it," Val says. She means it. He can tell. Something settles in the space between them. Something quiet and real. Val tells him she needs to keep moving, that there are people who need help, but that she doesn't want to leave him here alone. He tells her he is okay. She says she knows, but she still doesn't want to leave him alone. Haruki looks at her for a moment. Something in her steadiness, in the fact that she is not performing concern at him but simply feeling it, reaches him in a way that nothing else has since he woke up on this beach. Slowly he stands. He picks up the lacquered box and tucks it carefully inside his jacket, close to his chest. "Tell me what to do," he says. Val almost smiles. "Come on," she says. And they walk back up the beach together. Val has set up a rough triage area using seat cushions and salvaged luggage as padding. She is working on a man's leg wound with a first aid kit pulled from an overhead compartment when a shadow falls across her and she looks up. A man stands there, tall and broad, the kind of build that says he was once built for something specific and powerful, and has kept the frame long after that specific thing ended. He sets down a large armful of additional first aid kits, emergency blankets and water bottles that he has clearly spent the last hour pulling from the wreckage. He says nothing. He simply opens one of the kits and hands her what she needs before she has to ask for it. She glances at him. "You a doctor?" she asks. "No," he says. "You know what you're doing with that." He pauses for just a beat. "I've worked boats a long time." "You learn to patch things up when you're far from shore." He hands her gauze. She tells him her name. Val Cruz. "Connor Halverson," he says. "People call me Bear." She asks why. The faintest, almost smile crosses his face. "Older brother," he says. "Not a lot of imagination, but very consistent." She almost laughs. Doesn't quite get there, but almost. They work in silence for a moment. Two people who met less than 15 minutes ago on the worst day of their lives, moving together with an ease that neither of them has words for yet. Val tells him she needs to know what they have. Supplies, food, water, medical equipment, everything he has pulled from the wreckage. "I've been keeping track," he says. She looks at him. "It seemed like the thing to do," he says simply. She studies him the way she studies everything, quickly, thoroughly, making a decision. "Okay," she says, "stay close." He nods and gets back to work. Neither of them notices the woman standing 20 feet away, watching this exchange with eyes that are sharp and very still. Her name is Renata Solis. She is 45 years old, a former United States congresswoman, and she has not spent the last hour pulling wreckage from the ocean. She has been watching, learning the shape of things. She turns her gaze to the broader group, counting, evaluating, noting who people look to and who people look away from. She smooths her ruined blazer, and she begins to move through the crowd. At the edge of the tree line, Marcus Webb stands alone. He has stepped away from the group for just a moment, and he is looking into the jungle. He reaches into his pocket and removes a waterlogged wallet, opens it. The cash inside is destroyed, soaked through, completely useless. But there is an ID card in a plastic sleeve, and the ID is still legible. The name on the ID is not Marcus Webb. He looks at it for a moment, tucks it back in his pocket. He looks at the jungle. Something moves in the underbrush, fast and low, too fast to see clearly. He goes very still. Silence. And then, from deep in the trees, maybe 200 yards in, a sound, low and mechanical and yet somehow organic at the same time, like a massive chain being dragged across stone, like a piston the size of a building firing once, a deep, resonant thum that travels up through the ground and into the soles of his feet. Marcus does not move. The sound comes again, then silence, and then birds, hundreds of them, erupting from the canopy 200 yards into the jungle all at once, wheeling up into the sky in a dark, churning mass, calling out in a chaos of sound before vanishing over the mountain. Marcus watches them go. He looks back at the jungle. "Nope," he says very quietly, to absolutely no one. And he turns and walks back to the beach. The sun moves. Slowly the beach organizes itself, not into calm, but into something that at least resembles order. Groups form naturally. Some survivors attempt to build signal fires from debris. Some sit and cry. Some do both at the same time, which is perhaps the most honest response available. Renata has positioned herself at the center of a cluster of 8 or 9 people and is speaking with the quiet authority of someone who has managed crises in committee rooms and on the floor of the United States Congress. She is not elected to this position. She simply begins talking, and people listen. She speaks about head counts, water protocols, signal fires, sensible things, practical things, delivered with the calm precision of someone who is very good at making people feel that the situation is more manageable than it actually is. Adiese arrives in the middle of this to report that a woman with a head wound has uneven pupils. Does anyone here have medical training? People look at each other. Renata says the doctor is at the other end of the beach. Adiese says she knows that. She came here first to check if anyone closer had training before making the walk. No one does. Adiese turns and goes, but she glances back once, a look that takes Renata's full measure quietly and completely. Renata notices. She files it away. The woman with the head wound is named Grace. She is 55 years old, a retired school teacher from Portland, Oregon, and she drifts in and out of focus as Val examines her. When Val stands, she draws Haruki a few steps away and keeps her voice low. "Possible subdural hematoma," she says. "I can't confirm without imaging." Haruki asks what that means for Grace. "It means she needs a hospital," Val says. He looks at her steadily. "And if there isn't one?" "I know," Val says, a beat of silence between them. "What can we do?" he asks. "Keep her still, keep her awake, watch her pupils." A pause. "And hope?" It is the first time we have heard Val use that word. She doesn't seem particularly comfortable with it. Sam has been making his slow, one-armed way up the beach, doing his own version of what Val is doing, assessing, noting, cataloguing. Not injuries, details, the things that don't fit, the angle of the sun, the particular quality of the silence from the jungle, the fact that there are no boats visible on the horizon, no aircraft contrails in the sky, no evidence whatsoever of a shipping lane or flight corridor nearby. Which means wherever they are, it is not on any map that matters. When he and Val eventually find each other near the center of the beach, they stop and look at each other with the mutual recognition of two people who are both, in their different ways, trying to understand a situation that resists understanding. "You're the doctor," Sam says. "Trauma surgeon," Val says. "Val Cruz, and you are?" "Samson Ajay." Sam, a beat. "Forensic accountant." She looks at him. He looks at her. "I know," he says. "Not what you were hoping for." "I wasn't hoping for anything specific," Val says. "Can you do anything useful with that arm?" "Not at the moment, but I can do useful things with my eyes and my brain, and both of those are fully functional." He pauses. "I've been keeping a list." "Of what?" "Everything that doesn't add up." He meets her eyes. "It's already a very long list, and we have only been here a few hours." Val looks at him for a moment. "I want to see that list," she says. "I thought you might," Sam says. The sun turns gold and long across the water. The burning wreckage has largely gone dark. Smoking hulks now, nothing more. The island has gone quiet in a way that feels less like peace and more like attention. 2 fires have been built from driftwood on the beach, and survivors cluster around them, eating what could be salvaged from the galley carts. It is not enough food, but it is something, and something tonight feels like everything. Marcus sits slightly apart from one of the fires, eating a packet of pretzels, still sealed, mercifully dry, and watching Renata work her way through the groups of survivors. He watches the way she adjusts herself for each new cluster of people. Warmer here, more efficient there, the register shifting smoothly and invisibly as she moves. He recognizes the technique because he uses it himself. He watches her the way one card player watches another across the table, with appreciation, with wariness, and with the particular respect of someone who knows exactly what they are looking at. Adais sits nearby, turning an unopened water bottle over and over, in her hands. Marcus tells her she should drink that. She says she knows. She doesn't open it. He asks if she is from London. Without looking at him, she asks how he knew. The way you talk, he says, the way you don't talk. She looks at him then, she says Peckham. He says Atlanta, originally. She asks where he was going. There is a pause, just a beat too long, before he says Sydney. Business. She notices the pause, files it away, says nothing about it. She tells him she was going to see the Great Barrier Reef, that she had wanted to go since she was 9 years old. Her mother had a book, Wonders of the Natural World, and the reef was the very first page. She used to just stare at that photograph for hours, tracing the colours with her finger. Marcus is quiet for a moment. Then he tells her she will still get there. Yeah, Adais says quietly. She opens the water, drinks. Somewhere in the middle distance, the jungle makes no sound at all. Connor sits at the edge of the firelight, slightly apart from everyone else. He has a water bottle in his hands, turning it slowly, the way a person might turn a glass they have decided not to drink, just to feel the weight of it, just to have something to do with their hands. His eyes are on the fire, but he is not seeing it. He is somewhere else entirely, a long way from this beach, from this ocean, from this impossible island. He looks, in this unguarded moment, like a man who has been very tired for a very long time and has simply gotten used to the weight of it. Val settles nearby, not right beside him, just close enough. She says he has been quiet. He says he has been thinking. She asks about what. Whether there is a current pattern off this coastline, he says. Whether that tells us anything about where we are. Whether the fuselage sections are structurally sound enough to use as shelter, or whether they will shift in the night. Val says those are useful things to think about. That's generally why I think them, he says. A beat. She looks at him sideways. She asks how far he was from shore when he came up from the water. About a mile, maybe a mile and a half. She tells him he swam a mile and a half and then spent the rest of the day pulling wreckage from the ocean. There was work to do, he says simply. She studies him, the specific quality of a man who cannot stop moving, who has perhaps learned that stopping is the most dangerous thing. She asks where he was going. Sydney? He says he was going to look at a boat. A trawler someone in New South Wales was selling. He needed a second vessel for his charter fishing operation. She asks if he grew up doing that. No, he says. A pause. My dad did. On Lake Superior. I grew up watching him. Another pause. I thought I was going somewhere else. She doesn't push. He doesn't offer more. But he looks at her then, really looks at her the way he hasn't looked at anyone in a long time. And something in his expression shifts, almost imperceptibly, like a door that hasn't been opened in years, carefully testing its hinges. Val tells him she wants to address the whole group tomorrow morning. They'll look to you when you do, he says. She says she knows, and that she hates it. You're very good at it, though, he says quietly. Not flattery. An observation. She says nothing. But the armour thins just fractionally, just for a moment. She looks at the jungle. She asks if he heard anything out there today. From the trees, Connor is still for a long moment. Yes, he says. She asks what he thought it was. I don't know. A beat. But it was large. They both look at the tree line. The jungle is dark and still and completely, absolutely silent. The fire crackles. Val does not sleep. We leave the island for a moment, not forever, just a moment. We are in a hospital corridor in Los Angeles. The light is fluorescent and unforgiving, and a woman is walking fast with a chart in her hand and the particular exhaustion of someone at the end of a double shift who is still, somehow, accelerating. This is Val, 3 years younger, the same dark eyes, the same compressed efficiency in every movement, but something slightly softer around the edges, something that hasn't quite finished closing yet. A door opens ahead of her and a woman steps out. Her name is Rosa Navarro. She is 40 years old, warm and precise and lovely, and she has clearly been waiting. Val, she says. Val doesn't slow. Not now, Rosa. You said that yesterday. I meant it yesterday too. Rosa falls into step beside her. She mentions the caterer, a final head count, a venue capacity. Their wedding is in 6 weeks, she says. Val hasn't looked at a single thing. Val stops. She explains about the patient in Bay 4, a ruptured esophagus they initially misread, a second-year resident she doesn't fully trust, a situation that requires her right now. Tomorrow, she says. I will look at all of it tomorrow. I promise. Rosa looks at her for a long moment. You said that last week, she says quietly. Val opens her mouth, closes it. Rosa says she is not asking Val to be less of a doctor. She just wants her to occasionally also be her fiancé, to be present, to be there. I know, Val says, softer now. Do you? Because I feel like I am planning this completely alone, Val promises. Tomorrow. She means it in the way she always means it. Rosa studies her face. Okay, she says quietly. She squeezes Val's hand. Val squeezes back. And for just a moment, just a fraction of a second, Val looks at Rosa with something completely unguarded, something that costs her to feel and costs her even more to show. Then her pager goes off. She goes. Rosa stands alone in the corridor and watches her walk away. Her expression is not angry. It is something quieter than anger and considerably more final. It is the expression of a woman who already knows, somewhere beneath the hope, exactly how this story is going to end. Minneapolis. An apartment. The middle of the afternoon on a Sunday. The curtains are closed. It is 2 o'clock and the curtains are closed and there are dishes in the sink that have been there for several days and a television on with the sound turned low. A pre-game show, analysts at a desk, a graphic on the screen identifying an upcoming game. A young man sits on the couch. He is 24 years old. He is 24 years old, and he looks like someone who should be doing something extraordinary with that, Someone who, not 18 months ago, was doing exactly that. He has the face of someone young and the posture of someone who has already lost the thing that made the future feel real. His right knee is propped on a pillow. A surgical scar runs the full length of it, still relatively new, still angry-looking, still occasionally waking him up at night with a phantom pain that his body hasn't learned yet to stop expecting. On the television, a highlight reel plays. Someone else wearing the number he was supposed to wear. Someone else making the play he was supposed to make. He watches without expression. His phone buzzes on the cushion beside him. The screen reads, "Dad." He watches it buzz. It stops. He looks at his knee, he looks at the television. He reaches for the bottle on the coffee table. Stops. Looks at it for a long moment, a moment that contains, in a 24-year-old who should be somewhere else entirely, a weight that has no business being this heavy yet. And then, slowly and deliberately, he picks the bottle up and places it on the floor, just slightly out of reach. A small thing, the smallest possible thing, but a thing he chose. He puts his head back against the couch and closes his eyes. On the television, the pre-game music swells. He doesn't open them. The first light comes in grey and gold over the Pacific. Mist sits on the water. Island birds begin their morning sounds. Calls that none of these 47 people have ever heard before, in combinations that don't quite resemble anything they can name. Val is still awake. She has been awake the entire night, her back against a section of the fuselage, watching the tree line hold its silence in the dark. Now she watches the light arrive instead. It is, despite everything, despite the wreckage and the grief and the impossible wrongness of all of this, beautiful. She hates that it is beautiful. Around her, the beach slowly stirs. The specific sounds of 47 people waking up and remembering, in sequence, exactly where they are and what has happened to them. Haruki wakes from where he has been sleeping near the fire and sits up immediately, his hand going to the pocket of his jacket. The lacquered box is still there. He breathes. Marcus hasn't slept. He's been sitting at the water's edge all night, thinking. When the light is finally good enough, he wades back into the shallows and drags 2 more waterlogged bags from the surf onto the sand. Practical. Persistent. Not thinking about what might be inside them. Just thinking about the fact that whatever is inside them might be useful. Sam wakes and immediately, reflexively tries to use his injured arm. He makes a small, controlled sound of pain. Adaize, nearby, opens her eyes. "Don't," she says. "I'm aware," Sam says. "Then stop trying to use it." He looks at her with the expression of a man who's not accustomed to being told what to do, and is currently too tired to object. "You're very direct," he says, "for someone I've never met." "I've been told." She sits up and smooths her ruined clothes with the pragmatic dignity of someone who has decided that the state of her clothing is the one thing about this situation she can actually address. "How do you take your coffee?" Sam stares at her. She explains. There is an intact espresso machine in one of the galley carts and a small generator unit in the tail section that she believes might still be functional. She is going to attempt it. Sam says she cannot possibly. "I also cannot possibly be sitting on a beach on an island that should not exist," Adaize says, getting to her feet. "And yet here we both are. Black, got it." She walks away. Sam watches her go. Over the course of this series, we will learn that this expression on Sam's face, this particular and involuntary combination of bafflement and something very close to admiration, is the closest he gets to being charmed by anything. Valentina stands before all 47 survivors. They have arranged themselves in a rough semicircle on the beach. She didn't call this meeting formally. She didn't campaign for the position it implies. But when she stood up this morning and said they needed to talk as a group, everyone came. She looks at them, 47 people looking back at her. Some frightened, some working very hard not to appear frightened. Renata at the outer edge, watching everything with those calm, calculating eyes. Val keeps it short. She tells them her name, tells them she is a trauma surgeon, tells them she is going to give them an honest accounting of where things stand because they deserve honesty, and she has never been any good at comfortable lies. 22 people have significant injuries, she tells them. 3 of those are serious. One woman, Grace, has a head injury that requires careful, consistent monitoring. Medical supplies are limited. That is the reality. The other reality, she says, is that 47 people survived this crash. That is not nothing, she says. That is actually extraordinary. People look at each other. Something shifts in the group. Not hope exactly, but the first breath before hope. She tells them what they need. Fresh water before anything else. Shelter before the next nightfall, a visible signal for any aircraft that might pass. Fire, reflective material, anything large enough to be seen from above. And then Renata's voice comes from the edge of the group, smooth and unhurried. Who put you in charge? The group turns. Val looks at her. No one, Val says. Do you have medical training? No. Then I am in charge. A beat. Does anyone have a more useful alternative? Silence. Something moves through the group. Not laughter exactly. Something drier and more communal than that. Renata holds Val's gaze for a measured moment, then inclines her head. A small, precise, strategic withdrawal. She will absolutely revisit this. Connor speaks from nearby. He can handle shelter and construction, he says, and he knows how to locate fresh water. Most islands of this size have streams or springs somewhere inland. Val tells him to take whoever he needs. Marcus says he will go. Val asks the broader group if anyone else has useful skills. Medical, construction, navigation, any kind of wilderness or survival experience. A moment of silence. And then quietly, from near the back of the group, I speak Japanese and English fluently, and I can read some Latin. It is Haruki. His hands are in his pockets. He is looking at his shoes. I don't know if that helps anything. I just thought, in case. Val looks at him. It might, she says. Thank you, Haruki. He nods, keeps looking at his shoes. At the edge of the group, Renata watches this exchange. Her eyes move from Val to Connor to Haruki, noting, connecting, cataloguing. She is already building something. We just cannot see it yet. Connor and Marcus stand at the tree line with 3 others. Tom, a structural engineer who has barely spoken since the crash. Patrice, a retired army medic with steady hands and worried eyes. And a quiet man in his 30s named Joel, who has said almost nothing to anyone since they washed ashore. Marcus tells Connor about the sound he heard the day before. Connor says he heard it too. Marcus says it sounded like something very large and mechanical that has absolutely no business being on an uninhabited island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They look at each other. Marcus asks if Connor still wants to go in. Connor says they need water. People will start having serious problems by afternoon if they do not find a source. Marcus says that is not what he asked. Connor looks at the jungle, really looks at it. His jaw sets with the particular quiet resolve of a man who has learned that the thing you are afraid of rarely gets smaller by waiting. He steps into the trees. "Come on," he says. Marcus looks at the jungle one moment longer, then follows. The jungle closes around them almost immediately. It is extraordinary in here, dense and humid and layered with a green so deep and various it seems almost intentional, like a living thing that has been thinking about itself for a very long time. The sounds of the beach disappear within seconds, replaced by insect noise and unfamiliar bird calls, and the slow, soft drip of moisture falling from leaves high overhead. Connor moves through it with a steady, unhurried confidence. He reads the terrain the way people who spend their lives on water read currents. Not consciously, not effortfully, just knowing. After roughly 10 minutes, Marcus draws up short, goes completely still. "You see that?" he says, barely above a whisper. He's looking to the left into the deeper trees. Connor follows his eye line, and there, just visible through the layered underbrush, half consumed by decades of growth, vines draped across it like a burial shroud, is a structure. Not natural, not geological, man-made, concrete and corrugated metal extensively overgrown, but unmistakably intentional. Small, bunker-like. A single door, sealed from the outside with a heavy steel bar. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. Marcus says, very quietly, that is a building. Connor says yes it is. Marcus says it is a building on their deserted island. Connor says yes. Marcus looks at the door, at the bar securing it from the outside. He says that something sealed it from outside. Connor says he sees that. Marcus says that means whatever is inside. Connor says it couldn't get out. A beat of absolute silence. "I genuinely hate it here," Marcus says. Connor almost smiles. They stare at the structure. The vines across the door are old, not years of growth, but decades. Whatever was sealed inside that building was sealed away a very, very long time ago. Tom takes a single step toward it. "Don't," Connor says, quiet, firm. Tom stops. Connor looks at the building for another moment. "We mark it," he says. "We come back with more people and more information. Nobody touches anything alone." Marcus nods slowly. And then, from beneath them, from beneath the ground itself, from somewhere that has absolutely no business producing sound, the frequency, low and subsonic and felt in the chest and in the teeth and in the back of the skull, the same frequency from the cold open, the same frequency from the bottom of the ocean, once, like a heartbeat. All 5 of them go completely, instantly still. Every leaf in the jungle stops moving. Every bird goes silent. The frequency fades. Nobody speaks. Then, from somewhere deeper in, further into the jungle, perhaps a quarter of a mile, a sound that is different from the mechanical thoom of the day before. Softer, more organic. A sound like the island exhaling. Joel takes one slow step backward. "What was that?" he says. It is not a question. Connor and Marcus look at each other. Connor turns back in the direction they came from. "We found water," he says. "There is a stream about 40 yards northeast of here." A pause. "We're going back now." Nobody argues. Back on the beach, a Daisy stands at the water's edge. She has, impossibly and wonderfully, gotten the espresso machine working. A small generator unit, jury-rigged with duct tape, and the kind of optimism that refuses to acknowledge that something might not be possible. A small cluster of survivors nearby watches this with the expression of people witnessing something that feels, on this particular morning, like a minor miracle. She waits for it to finish, and then she hears it, the frequency, but not the way the others hear it, not in her chest, in her head, behind her eyes, like a voice that has not yet found its words. She presses her fingers to her temple, squeezes her eyes shut, and in the dark behind her eyelids, a flash, a fraction of a second, like a camera going off in a dark room, a door, old wood dark with age and moisture, a number carved deep into it, 23. She opens her eyes, the ocean, the beach, the morning, 46 other people trying to survive. The machine beeps. Her hands are shaking. She picks up 2 cups. She walks back towards Sam, who has been watching her from a few yards away with the careful attention of a man who notices things for a living. "Are you all right?" he asks. She hands him his coffee. Black, no sugar. "Adays," he says. She looks at him. "Are you all right?" he asks again. A beat. She looks at the ocean. "I don't know," she says quietly. She drinks her coffee. Sam watches her. Then he looks at the ocean too, and he adds something new to his list. Haruki sits alone again at the far end of the beach, the lacquered box open in his lap. Inside, protected by a small plastic sleeve, is a photograph. Old, worn at the edges, slightly faded. A Japanese woman in her 40s, younger than Haruki has ever known her, younger than he knew she had ever been, laughing at something just off camera. She is beautiful in the photograph. She looks like someone for whom laughter comes easily. Haruki has almost no memory of her laughing. The grandmother he knew was a different woman than this one. Older, harder, grieving her own losses in ways that left no room for his. She loved him. He has always known that. She loved him in the particular, fierce, blunt way of someone who does not know how to love without also trying to control. She loved him, and she called him by a name that was not his name, and she never, in all the years they had together, called him Haruki. He closes the box. He becomes aware of someone sitting nearby, not right beside him, but close enough. He looks up. A man, 35, lean and very still, with the quality of someone who has spent considerable time and effort learning to take up as little space as possible. He is looking at the ocean, not at Haruki. "You don't have to talk," the man says. "Okay," Haruki says. Silence settles between them. It is somehow not uncomfortable. "My name is Reed," the man says. "Haruki." Reed nods, still looking at the ocean. "How old are you?" he asks. 17. Reed is quiet for a moment. "You shouldn't be doing this alone," he says, very quietly. "I'm not," Haruki says. "There are 47 of us." "That's not what I meant." Haruki looks at him. Reed finally looks back. Something passes between them in that look. Not warmth exactly, not yet, it is too early for warmth. Something closer to recognition, the specific recognition of 2 people who have both learned, for very different reasons, to make themselves smaller than they are. Haruki asks if Reed was travelling alone. "Yes," Reed says. Haruki asks if he has family. A longer pause. "Not exactly," Reed says. Haruki nods slowly, like that makes complete and immediate sense, because for him it does. They sit together at the water's edge while the rest of the beach moves and breathes and tries to become something survivable behind them. Neither of them moves. Neither of them needs to. When Connor and Marcus return from the jungle, the group gathers around them quickly. Connor gives Val a clear, calm report, the stream location, the water quality, the distance, the route. He describes the terrain. He answers questions. He does not mention the building. Marcus stands slightly behind him and watches him not mention it. Afterward, when the group disperses, Marcus catches Connor's arm. "You are not going to tell her," Marcus says low. "I'm going to tell her," Connor says. "When?" "When I know more about what we are telling her." A pause. "We tell her now. 47 people panic before they have eaten or drunk anything or slept. We tell her when we know more. 47 people have information they can actually use." Marcus looks at him for a long moment. "That," he says, "is a very sophisticated argument for a fisherman." Connor meets his eyes. "I've had a lot of time to think on boats," he says simply. A beat. "Fine," Marcus says. "But I want it noted for the record that I think this is a terrible island, and I would like very much to leave it immediately." "Noted," Connor says. Marcus walks away. Connor turns and looks at the jungle. The jungle gives nothing back. Val and Haruki sit with Grace as the light goes gold and long. Grace's pupils are still even. Good news, received with the cautious gratitude of people who have learned today not to count on anything. Grace is more present this evening than she was this afternoon. She looks at Val. "Where do you think we are?" she asks. Val says she doesn't know yet. Grace mentions the flight path. They were well over the Pacific when everything... Val says she knows. Grace says there shouldn't be an island here. "No," Val says quietly. "There shouldn't." Grace looks at the jungle, at the mountain rising behind it, its peak still wrapped in low cloud. "It's beautiful," she says. "Yes," Val agrees, "that frightens me more than the crash did." Grace pauses. Does that make any sense? Val looks at her. "Yes," she says. "It does." Haruki, sitting nearby with a lacquered box in his hands, looks up at the mountain, and at its peak, just barely visible through the shifting cloud, there and then gone, a light, faint, rhythmic, like a pulse. He blinks. It is gone. He stares at the mountain for a long moment. He looks at Val, at Grace. Neither of them is looking at the mountain. He looks back, nothing, just cloud and green and fading light. He holds the lacquered box in both hands. And from somewhere very far away, or perhaps from somewhere very close, somewhere just beneath the sand beneath his feet, the frequency comes again. Once, like a heartbeat, like something that has been waiting a very long time, finally saying, "I know you are here. I have been waiting for you." The fires burn. We move through the camp slowly, in the last light of this impossible first day, taking in the shape of what these 47 people are becoming. Val, still awake, her back against the fuselage, watching the tree line. Connor nearby, awake too, his eyes on the water. His hands are quiet in his lap, the particular stillness of a man who has spent years alone on the ocean and made a kind of peace with his own company. He and Val are not speaking, but there is something in the air between them, something comfortable and charged and carefully mutually unaddressed. Marcus at the edge of the firelight, watching everything and everyone, cataloguing, never fully still even when he is sitting still. Sam, his arm newly and painfully reduced, sitting with a waterlogged paperback open in his lap, though he is not reading it. He is looking at the ocean, adding things to his list. Adai's beside him. She has not told him what she saw, what she heard. She turns her empty coffee cup over and over in her hands and stares at the dark water. Renata, slightly apart from everyone, writing in a small notebook she has produced from somewhere. She is always writing, always noting, always building something the rest of them cannot yet see. And at the far end of the beach, just at the edge of the firelight, Reed and Haruki. Reed is speaking quietly. We cannot hear the words from here, only the low, careful cadence of them. Haruki is listening, actually listening, in the full and rare way that young people sometimes do when they find, unexpectedly, someone who is speaking directly to them rather than at them. The camera pulls back, slowly, wider and wider, the camp becoming a cluster of small lights against the vast dark beach, the beach becoming a thin, pale line against the jungle becoming a shadow against the mountain becoming a shape against the stars. The island, seen from above, is extraordinary. And then the camera drops, down through the air, down past the beach, down through the sand and the rock and the deep geological dark beneath the island, down into the ocean, down into the dark, the frequency one last time, and at the very bottom of the frame, in the absolute and total blackness at the edge of what can be seen, something moves, something large, something that has been here since long before any of them were born, long before the island had a name, long before anyone knew it existed, something that is very, very interested in what has just arrived on its shore. And then, black, complete and total black. 47 survivors. The wreckage of Oceanic Air 924 was located the following morning. No bodies were recovered. No survivors were found. Sleep well. The island will be here when you wake up. It always is.